Yeah, I'd close this back off.
I want you to literally just do a walk around.
Alright.
Why?
Alright.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another monthly report by Metra. This is for the monthly report of February. We're recording this on February 27th of 2021. I am the president and secretary of Metra Incorporate, and
I'm the chairman and CEO, and I'm Derek Boyd.
I'm Vladimir Stakhalov. So thank you guys so much for tuning back in. Let's dive right into this. So first things first, obviously those of you that watched our previous video for the month of January, we have a couple of things we want to update, and we're going to try to run through this as quickly as possible, but still give you guys a good amount of information. So we reached out to the Security Exchange Commission, and they did inform us that no, we did not have to file at all, which for those of you that don't remember, what we were concerned about is we were concerned about how to handle our stocks. Mm-hmm. They stated specifically we don't need to file basically until we have either 10 million in assets, mm-hmm, or 1,200 total investors or holders of our stock, or if we have more than 500 non-accredited investors that are holding on to our stock or that we have involved in our company. So that would mean that in best case scenario, we could hypothetically have 500 non-accredited investors and 700 accredited investors and still be fine. The guy clearly explained to us that whatever you do is that once you file one time, you can't go back. It's out there, it's done. You cannot go back once you start filing.
Even if you go below that threshold that he's mentioning, once you start, you have to continue. Mm-hmm. It's required.
And so the thing is that this is phenomenal news for us, because he also informed us that the filing for it about every single year runs a budget of like what?
It was a few thousand. It was like tens of thousands of
dollars.
It
was a couple of tens of thousands of dollars, which
like 30 or 40 or something.
If you guys remember in our previous video on our budget, we ain't got that.
No.
We're scraping the barrel. So no.
That's like triple our budget just to file. Like that ain't happening.
So yeah, this was phenomenal news to find out. No, we're cleared. We're good. We don't have to do anything. However, he did inform us that it's different state per state. So if you're filing a C Corp in your state, double check on it. And luckily for Delaware, we're good.
And speaking of states, I did clarify the Secretary of State as well as their Department of Revenue. Once again, both of them informed us that we do not have to file anything on their end either. This is simply SEC only.
Mm-hmm. So now we're moving on to the next thing. So Derek, how's your experience with T-Mobile going?
Still a freaking disaster. So let's give you the run-of-the-mill update on that one. It kind of backed it all up. Doing a simple transition from our previous company to a new company. They wound up doing it under a sole proprietorship. They wanted to have to go back and delete this one and then delete that one and come back and put us into a third one. Well, they're still having this issue of transferring all of our lines to the third one, and we've also had to go through maybe 10 or 12 different phone calls with their
We've gone through so many reps. There's a rep that we've been working with who's actually a in-store rep. Yep. He's been phenomenal. Problem is he can't do anything.
Exactly.
It's not his fault, but he's literally useless because of T-Mobile.
And he also had to go through these same online tech support companies. Well, after about
the almighty Indians.
Yeah, the almighty Indians and the almighty machines that they can't control. And then so after about 3 weeks or so of actually going through the typical tech support section, what do they call it? Business?
They call it business assistance or business support.
Some BS division of it, which is terrible.
I'll just be honest with you guys. What broke the camel's back is the fact that we got charged $304 on our first account, the original business. Then we got charged $340 some odd dollars on that second account that they opened up and didn't do properly and closed on us. And they didn't even know what to charge us on our new account.
Yes, and we have no bill that we can see or anything. We had no access to it either, remember?
Yeah, because for some reason, my login ID is now permanently stuck on the first business, and his login, he's not the actual account holder, so now neither one of us had access either.
To it. So like I said, about 3 weeks into dealing with this is actually just about a week ago we got this semi-resolved. Vlad wound up getting absolutely fed up one day with dealing with the absolute terrible Indians.
Oh, I almost went nuclear.
Because we were dealing with one during that day, and he went and found a corporate number to go straight to the president's office, correct?
Yeah, so I'll post this number here. This is T-Mobile's corporate number. Listen, don't abuse this. This is meant for if you have serious issues that you are not getting resolved and it's not being handled right. We went through this number, and thank God we got a hold of a very nice lady on the other end. We did two things. We explained to her her situation. We got some of the things like kind of figured out and what's actually going on, what we're supposed to be charged. She is now handling everything. The reason I know this is because one of the almighty Indians called me back and literally informed me that they are no longer allowed to touch our account, which is phenomenal news. It's literally an executive order. They're not allowed to touch the account.
Yes.
And this woman is now the one that's handling all of it. She's rectifying the situation. She's getting everything placed back together. She's actually calling us and updating us on it. This is the number you call. You have issues like we did. Listen, after the first 2 weeks, stop wasting your time. Don't deal with the almighty Indians. Just call this number and make sure to file a complaint against all of the almighty Indians that failed you in the past, because they need to be reprimanded. This is ridiculous.
And then we'll release her name on probably the next video for the final update if T-Mobile finally does get all their stuff like resolved and whatnot. Right now, we're just kind of making sure that this isn't just another false hope and that we're just thinking that things are getting done. We have seen some progress. We have had.
She has done more in one phone call that we had with her than the almighty Indians have done in almost 2 months. We're talking about this for 2 months.
We've got most of our promotions resolved. We've gotten the individual cell spot tower that I have to have in my personal home because I have terrible service. Resolved. We had also gotten the bill
we did
itself.
get a refund for. We got a full refund on the second account, not the one that was our first account, because obviously we owed that. But we did get a full refund on the second account. She already issued it and went from there. So yeah, she took care of a lot. She's that's what I'm saying. More's been done, so we at least have some hope, because if this didn't get resolved, we were honestly starting to heavily consider Verizon. So
moving on from that, what's the next topic?
Next thing. Okay, if you guys remember, last video, we actually gave a lot of praise to Parks Bank and explained how happy we were with their customer service and the fact that they took us in, no appointment, and worked with us from there. Here's the unfortunate thing that we just found out. And spoiler alert, we're going to be closing down our Parks account, and this is very disappointing. So, if you open up a personal account at Parks, you can do the typical thing, which is called an ACH transfer, meaning that you can send money from your bank account to another bank account that's not associated with Parks whatsoever. On the business accounts, they don't have that as an option. You cannot send money as an ACH on your business account. I tried.
And how exactly did it go about?
By the way, I called them about this because I thought I was dumb and I didn't know how to use their online system. No, they blatantly told me on the phone, you cannot send ACH transfers. What they recommended instead is that they recommended to use their bill pay system, which once again is another form of ACH transfer from every other normal bank in America. They recommended that we use their bill transfer system. And their bill transfer system, when I initiated the payment to our other account, which is that Bank of America account that we made, it said that it was going to take 10 days for it to happen. I'm like, okay. So I was like, whatever, send it off.
So we kept checking the bank accounts.
The money never got pulled out. Nothing ever happened. And lo and behold, 15 days later, I get a letter at our virtual physical address
in Delaware.
For a $200 check to Metra Inc. from Parks. You can't make this up.
They physically mailed a check to our address for him to deposit to pay a bill to
Parks,
themselves.
Your customer service, your call center, everything. Mwah, so good. So well done. Why is this your business? Why is this how you handle your business accounts? That is so absurd to me. I can't even put it into words how absurd this is.
So to reiterate, there is no way other than physically going to the bank and pulling money out cash and dumping it into your other bank account. There is no way to transfer funds from one bank account outside of that bank to another without doing.
But you can transfer them in.
Yes.
You can transfer. They'll accept ACH transfers. They just won't let you do them.
Yes. The only other option is wire. So we'd have to wire our own funds.
Oh my God.
Which would have cost, $30, $40
Listen,
per time.
wires, just for you guys who don't know and who are new to business, wires are a very good way to get money quick and send it fast. Problem is, it charges you money on the front end, it charges you money on the receiving end as well. Both sides will get charged.
Yep.
So you're looking at continuous fees for sending money, but you get it immediately, which is the great thing about it. Needless to say, moving on from that, Bank of America is now our primary bank.
Mm-hmm.
We've altered everything. We've shifted everything over to Bank of America now. That's going to be the primary bank that we're going to use. So far, I've actually rather enjoyed it. I like their interface. I like their system. I like their mobile app.
Yep.
They have a very good, well done system. But you never want to have a business solely reliant on just one account. So we are currently looking at opening up another bank account somewhere else, just because of our previous experience and years of experience in business. Never have just one account. Mm-hmm. Now, next topic for updates, we're going to go ahead and update you guys on Freedom Voice, our 1-800 number that we're using. Derek, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, it's been pretty good. We haven't really had too many issues with it. Really, the biggest concern or problem, it's not too big of a deal. Every time you want to make any type of drastic change outside of their specific interface that they have online, you have to call it in and you have to have a physical representative actually handle the change. And those changes can take sometimes up to 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So for example, one of the changes you can't do on their interface is business hours. So if you have two different voice texts, whenever somebody calls in, instead of it saying like, hey, we're open, or like, hey, we're closed, call back, you have to tell them when those business hours are, and then you can attach that message to that different time slot. Other than that, the only other real concern we have is occasionally, at least on my end, because I do most of the calling, I get the occasional interference with trying to call somebody, because what it does is when you use their app, you physically call a California number, which I assume is their number, and then that number will call whoever you're calling, so it doesn't call directly to something, and sometimes a call will drop going from that California number to somebody else. But, I mean, that's happened maybe 5 times over 150 something calls, so pretty good percentages.
And look, I'll say it like this too. Even with you having to call in customer service, at least they get it done. And quite frankly, if you're too stupid to figure out their system and understand how to do it, they have an English-speaking rep. It's always been an English-speaking rep. A lot of times a dude too. Yeah. I've noticed that too. That will sit there and that will help you and will set it up and get it done for you. It is good customer service. So far, Freedom Voice, good job, good show. You guys are the ones that we're planning to stick with. Last final update we have for the month of January that we left unsolved. Grasshopper did refund the full amount. They actually did it very funnily right after we finished recording the previous January video. So we did get a full refund on it, which is great. It's good. Still very, very annoyed. And when we were looking into some of the reviews on it, we noticed that a lot of people have talked about how they had issues where they transferred in their 1-800 number. So they had a 1-800 number somewhere else, transferred it into Grasshopper's system. They canceled them because of fraud, security, or whatever else, and then kept their 1-800 number and refused to release it. I'm not entirely sure. I think that might be a little bit borderline illegal, because I know you had told me that your personal number is actually yours and no phone company, whether you owe them a debt or not, can actually hold on to it. But yeah, again, I wish, because I'll be honest, I like Grasshopper's interface more than Freedom Voice. However, unfortunately, there's no way we can work with them. They've refused to respond. They refuse to actually rectify anything.
We've got zero communication with them after we've contacted them twice.
So yeah, it's kind of a shame. But now, after I finish pouring my tea all seductively, all right, new updates, new segment. We're actually moving on to what we actually started doing or got done in February. That's new compared to what we were dealing with in January. So we started opening up business credit. This is a crucial thing as a new business. Do not delay this. This should be one of your top priorities, almost before, actually it should be right up there with opening a bank account and everything else like that. Get a Dun & Bradstreet number and get your account registered with Dun & Bradstreet immediately. Now, their credit profile builder and things like that, I think it's a bit of a ripoff. I think it's a bit of a scam. You just want the DUNS number, which you can get for free. It doesn't cost you anything. You will have a rep call you and try to tell you and basically hard sell you into an upsell on it. You don't have to do it. Just get a DUNS number, and you're already starting to get some kind of business credit getting established, because now there's actually an account to link when people want to send like debts and things like that to your company. Derek actually found a couple of other things. You found 3 things, right, that were actually pretty interesting on business credit?
Yeah, so basically what I found is there are a few different options you can do to get the business credit kind of up and running. With a new business, there's really 2 major things you need to focus on. You have net 30 accounts, which are your every 30 months they automatically report. They're usually your reoccurring kind of things, such as T-Mobile, which is why it's such a big deal for us to get that set up, because that will be that reoccurring bill that gets sent every single month. And then you have your revolving debts or your loans, and those are just going to be like in an own package. And so revolving debts and loans typically require either a personal guarantee or already established credit to get those. Net 30s don't always require that. In fact, usually because you're paying for the service, that's why it's a net 30. So once again, T-Mobile, you're paying for the phone service, they just happen to report Dun & Bradstreet. Similar thing, 2 other companies I've come across, and there's about 7 or so that are out there, but some of them are just stuff that we don't really need, so it's kind of a waste of our money and time. But these 2 in particular we can utilize, and that's Uline and Quill. And these are, once again, net 30 accounts. What we do is we basically just buy whatever we need off their website. So they're both product-based companies. They sell usually like janitorial goods or office supplies, things like that.
I'll say this. Uline is more of like your retail store kind of stuff. It's a lot of that, like a lot of in bulk, like hand towels, hand sanitizers, soaps, BS stuff like that. Quill actually was more like a business Amazon. It was a little weird. It had almost everything and anything that was within reason.
Yeah, like a virtual Sam's Club. Almost.
Yeah, actually, that's a good way to explain
it. Bulk supplies that just ship directly to your business or whatever address you sent. But those are net 30 accounts. So for example, if we buy something on there for $100 and we wind up having to pay for it in a 30-day cycle for a bill, we pay that, and that bill gets reported to Dun & Bradstreet. And then every time we purchase something or whatever we wind up doing in a service or purchase with them, those will get reported when we utilize them. So that trade line will get attached to our Dun & Bradstreet number that he was talking about earlier. So it'll look like we have multiple different accounts already set up that is established credit. Now, with that, we have another company that I've come across. Like I said, you have your net 30s. So those are the ones that, like I said, you pay for your service or product, and they just report it.
And let me preface something real quick, just so we're not confusing anybody. We're currently in the process of trying to establish these net 30s, so we're going to be submitting in the applications here soon. We just did the preliminary research on it so far, so this is just what our research came up was. These 2 companies being Uline and Quill, and now what Derek is about to talk about here.
So now, like I said earlier, you have your net 30s, and you kind of have your revolving or your your regular loans. Now, those, like I said, typically require a personal guarantee. Basically, a personal guarantee in a really simple form is, once again, like we talked about before in the past video, your business has its own, almost like social security number. So imagine like there's an imaginary person here, and that's Metra. So you have Vladimir Sakala, Derek Boyd, who both have individual security numbers, and then you have Metra, which has its own. Metra is still basically a child. It doesn't have enough credit for it to get anything on its own. So imagine like you're 18 years old again and you're trying to apply for like a credit card. You're going to get probably denied if you're not already on something that maybe your parents attached you to. So imagine us, once again, as like the parents in this case. That's what a personal guarantee is. It says, hey, Metra itself doesn't have enough credit established to apply for a credit card, but I, Derek Boyd, do have an established credit history based off what I've done personally over my life. I'm willing to personally guarantee that if he or it, Metra, can't pay the bill, I take the financial burden and responsibility to pay that bill. So, most times when you're setting up a brand new account, so in this case Metra being brand new, you're going to have to run through a series of personal guarantees because it takes a while for this to build up those trade lines, like I was mentioning with the net 30 accounts, usually a year or 2 years, or a seasoned account of whatever you need before you can finally get those approvals that you're looking for. Now, there are some workarounds, and one in particular that I found is a credit card called Divvy, D-I-V-V-Y. This company doesn't require any hard credit checks, so anything personally going to my credit and actually hitting my report, and it will be coming up on there as an inquiry. What they do instead is they do a bank statement kind of like loan. So they'll look at your bank statements for 90 days or sometimes longer depending on if they need to, delve back further. But they'll look at what you've done transactional history-wise and your revolving balance amount and see what they feel comfortable as far as loaning to you. And then that is now your credit card. So you'll have, say, a $500 credit card because they've seen your business bank account and they see that you transact 50 times in a month and that you typically have at least $1,000 or $2,000 in your bank account, so they feel comfortable giving you a $500 credit card. That doesn't require any personal guarantees, and similar enough, that same company, like a regular credit card does for Experian and TransUnion and Equifax, will report to Dun & Bradstreet every 30 days. So it adds on top of that net 30, building more trade lines. So now if we have T-Mobile, Uline, Quill, and Divvy, now we have 4 trade lines right out the gate that we don't have to personally guarantee. And then when we do go for more established loans, like through banks and whatnot, we could personally guarantee on top of that, get better credit, or better interest on that for the better credit that we're applying.
Alright, and the reason this is so important too, guys, just so you guys all understand, is that you want to establish all these credit lines, you want to establish these credit cards as early as possible, because to get these bank loans, as he mentioned beforehand, you're going to need to have some kind of history, otherwise you're going to be personally guaranteeing everything. To get the big fat business loans, because there's much more loaning options available to you as a business than there ever will be for you on personal. And to get those fat business options, you have to have something established. That's why we're focusing on it so heavily and we're trying to create it, because right now, in the early stages, you are just stuck with investors, which investors aren't bad, and we're going to do an entire talk about investors later on in this video, but you don't want to be in there permanently because it is limiting. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the next thing. So, we actually checked out a couple of properties, and I'm going to show you guys them as we're going through it, because I took some video of 2 of them. I didn't take a video of the other one. I apologize. It was too dark. Video quality was poor. It wouldn't even be worth showing. So, first property. I advertised. So what I did is I put out an advertisement. Pretty simple Craigslist advertisement, just simply stating, hey, we'll buy your home. We don't care if you're going through foreclosure. We don't care if you have any liens or judgments on it. We don't care if it's not in perfect condition. We will buy your home. Just put in your information and let's schedule a time to meet and take a look at the house. Well, somebody actually responded to that. Unfortunately, they are down in Orangeburg County, which from where we are up in the Greenville area here in South Carolina is about a 3.5-hour drive for us. Yeah. So we made an entire day of looking at properties. When we got to the property, the way they described it didn't sound like it was actually too outside of our range of something we can work with. Obviously, don't go look at a property if you're already thinking in the back of your mind, no, I'm not interested in this. You're wasting your time. However, I'll kind of let you take over this because you have more construction experience than I do.
Yeah, so most of the properties that we delve into early on when we're starting off of a business is typically just your cheaper, more fix and flip or fixable friendly style homes.
That's fair.
Not something that's already basically up established or your much more pricey style homes, typically because just on our end, we typically do better with our business model with the lower income homes out the gate. Now, that's not to say we can't get the medium or higher priced income homes later, but out the gate we go a little higher on them.
Shoot for the rat, get the cheese crumbs, eventually get the block in the fridge. That's our motto.
Basically we're just, I'm kind of beating around the bush. We're rats, so we look for rat-infested homes. It just works well for us.
Yeah.
I can't say it any other way. But, so anyhow, so we usually go for, like I said, these cheaper homes that usually need some type of work on it, and then we would just discount that to some other end buyer who will take over, and then we usually owner finance it to them and cover that cost and whatever margin we can make in the sale. Now, this particular home we went and looked at had a couple things that, first off, I've personally never seen in my real estate experience.
Keep in mind, he has 4 years about 4 now. Years. I still have about 3.5, and this caught both of us very off guard.
First thing we noticed when we get to this place, by the way, it is a very beautiful, dry, sunny, no clouds in the sky day. Absolutely perfect weather to go look at properties. And the first thing we noticed, besides the 20 dogs in the yard, is a very large amount of water pooling in the backyard. This is about an acre and some change of land, and behind the trailer is a mobile home, is about 0.6 of an acre, more than half an acre, and it is a actual swamp. It is a marsh that is at least 3 inches of water visibly, and then when you step, you sink another half a foot or so.
And upon further inspection, as you guys are seeing here now, it's underneath the entire mobile home.
Yes.
For those of you that don't know how mobile homes are set up, again, it's a portable home. They just stick cinder blocks underneath it and level it out with the ground, and that's how the home sits. But you must keep it level on both ends, because most mobile homes are cut down the middle and transported that way.
Let's assume it's a double wide.
Assuming it's a double.
Yeah.
If it's a single wide, it's all in one package. This one in particular was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath double wide.
Yeah. Now, the reason why he's bringing this up, why it's a big deal, is because, like he's talking about, because they put them on these cinder blocks, all the weight of the house is on specific points. Well, the water is wet, and so when it's wet, it's loose, and all that weight slowly pushes it down, and it starts doing what's called settling. Where the house will be at a different angle, or it'll just start leaning in certain different areas, twisting and whatnot.
And it's astronomically worse on mobile homes, because the thing is that in a regular house, like a slab house or something like that, you're really not going to get much settling. Like, it must be bad outside environments around it for it to settle down. On a mobile home, you have one side of the trailer too heavy with furniture, cooking utensils, just hoarding. If you're a hoarder and you just put stuff in the corners, that side is going to sink much faster than the other side, which is still going to stay afloat. So you're doing this constant thing here where it's sinking unbalanced, which is the worst thing that could happen, because basically half your house is sliding off while the other half is standing, then it slides off and it just continues on from there.
Now, the first thing you're going to see in the video when he's referencing how it's separating like it is, or how parts of the house are going to be sinking faster than others, the first thing you're going to see in the video is the separation between the front patio or porch, whatever you want to call it. That's that concrete section that's attached to the front door, so that way you have steps to walk in. That section is already detached and is cracking, which shows that there's immediate signs of settlement, because the house is going too far down to keep on the connection with that particular patio, and so now it's causing a breakage. Now, that's the first sign that tells you, okay, there's already some settling happening. But that's not the worst sign. The worst sign is always the roof. Always. And that's exactly what you look for when you look for settling, is you walk inside the home. A lot of times you can see it outside if there's some shingles and stuff popped up. But in particular, when you walk inside the home, if you see cracks running up the sidewall, running up the walls or running up the ceiling, you know for a fact you have some splits happening somewhere, and there's pressure happening that's causing it to break. And that is the worst thing you can have in a home, because the biggest thing that will damage a home is water. Rain destroys houses fast.
If you could somehow create a tarping system that just covers all sides of the home from any kind of water penetration, moisture as well. Don't just think just water dripping on. No. Moisture is also just as bad. So if you could vacuum seal a home somehow and keep all the moisture out and not have vegetation like poke its way through it or whatever else, because again, that's also some form of water, that home would last astronomically longer than it ever should. Problem is, just like how he's saying, because of the settlement issue, you have the cracks and the splits, and water, actual just regular water, is just pelting in on a continuous basis, and the moisture from underneath the house in the swamp is rising up in the heat, just hitting the home even worse.
So unfortunately, one of the most common replacements in a home, and also one of the most costly replacements in a home, is a roof. And in this particular situation, not only was that settling happening that was causing a separation in different parts of the ceiling, which was causing water to come in like 3 or 4 different rooms, but also because there's just the age of the roof, shingles are popped off. So what that is, those are little flaps that basically water will run over them. They're called asphalt shingles. And when they tear off or come off, it's like little tabs. Now you have a bit of a gap. It's a little bit of a weaker area for water to seep through, and some of the little gaps where all the tabs are.
And you also have the fascia boards as well, which what the fascia boards are is that around, basically where the roof ends, you have a board kind of underneath a little bit of where the roof is,
it's a little bit of
and
a
it
lip.
just perimeters the entire house to keep water, if nothing else, on that board and then down. Otherwise, the water can just roll right back into the house because you typically keep your roof areas open for insulation, better cooling, heating, things like that. Yeah, the fascia boards were coming apart as well, but it doesn't matter. Even if you fix the roof on this house, you're going to have the same problem again in about a year to 2 years with how bad this swamp is. That's one thing you need to learn about real estate. Don't just look at the immediate problem. Look at the actual root cause first. And that swamp was 100% the root cause of the vast majority of the problems with this home. And to fix something like that, we got.
So here's kind of the problem. So the house itself, the deal itself, really wouldn't have been that bad if it was a more prototypical home that we're used to, or just the land itself wasn't a disaster. So the home itself, they were only requiring $9,000 for the loan that they had with somebody else. Somebody else was owner financing it to them. So they had like $9,000 left on this note.
They were paying They were paying $9,000. I'm sorry, they had $9,000 left, and they were only paying $360 a month.
Yeah.
We could have easily helped relocate them into another home, talk with the actual person, took over the loan ourselves. This is where the dealing starts coming in, and just continuing on from there.
Yeah. So, like, for example, what we were thinking going into it is that if we wanted to maintain that the owner finance portion of it and keep it as cheap as possible to us, what we could do is we could offer these people, like you said, to relocate. So we can give them like $2,000 or something. Be like, hey, go live in a rental or just go move somewhere else. We'll take over the note.
Now, real quick, this is very important. Protect yourself.
Yep.
First thing we told you guys in the first video, never just give them $2,000. Make sure that if they're wanting to go into an apartment, you tell them that you will pay for their first month, their first security deposit, or whatever the deal is. Say if they want 6 months, sure, I'll pay 6 months, but you pay that directly to the apartment complex or whatever else to make sure you finalize the deal, because the last thing you want to do is give these people $2,000. Now, guess what? You could call the police all day long. They're not going to do anything. You have to take them to actual civil court. Yep. Don't put yourself in that position. Protect yourself first.
And you can't evict them out of the house because
you don't own it.
You don't own it. So we could have taken that property, taken over that mortgage, which was roughly $9,000, with interest and everything. It probably would have taken us after the 2.5, 3 years.
They said that they only had 2 years left on it.
So it would have been like maybe $9,500, $10,000. We could have looked a little bit more into it, and then, like I said, that $2,000 that we paid, we could have overall got in for like $11,500 for about an acre and some change of property in a mobile home that was a 3 or 4 bedroom.
It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I'll admit, the inside of the home, very poor condition. They had about 7 cats. I want to say about 6 dogs is what I counted.
Let me finish up with the reporting. So, like I said, if that were the case, we could have got in for $11,500. And we could have resold it, owner finance to somebody else for a minimum of $15,000 to $30,000. Just right out the gate. And got, for $3,000 down payment, cover the cost we paid them, and then have somebody else pay like $500 a month. And we take a small margin on the split. So we're paying $360, we get $500, we pay off that loan eventually, and then we just take the full $500 until this guy pays it off.
Which, by the way, is perfectly fine to do. Like, there's nothing wrong with you getting a property owner finance to you and then you owner financing out to other people. A lot of people will tell you otherwise. No, as long as you have the right to that property, you can owner finance it to somebody else.
Now, the reason why it's a problem in this particular case is because the land, when we reached out to a landscaper, they told us basically 2 options. Literally dig a giant hole and have all the water drain into it. And
so like a pit, a literal water pit well.
And basically make a makeshift pond out of it. So that way whenever it keeps raining, it'll eventually drain into it, and hopefully it'll retain that specific area and not anywhere else. Or 2, backfill the hell out of it to where it just has a lot of dirt on there, and no longer will water settle, and hopefully it'll drive off into somebody else's land and not your problem anymore. Now, the hole digging really isn't that big of a deal. You can basically dig the hole if you want to, but we're talking like, he specifically was mentioning like a 6-foot size hole, like a swimming pool in the backyard. You can physically dig. Now, I'm not buying a backhoe to do that. That'd be like a couple $1,000s to rent one to do it. Or to physically dig it, I'm not physically doing it because that's a ridiculously long time. That's like a couple weeks.
The other issue is that just because you have that hole, you have to remember water always drains to the lowest point. So you would still have to level out the rest of the land to where all the lowest points go to this hole. which means you have to either lift the mobile home up somehow, kind of move it a little bit or something like that, which you would have to do anyway to get it what would it be called?
Re-leveled.
Re-leveled, thank you.
So, yeah, so with that, so the hole was kind of an inconvenience. And then the backfilling, if we wanted to do that, we were looking into it, and it was going to cost us like $5,000 worth of dirt to put in this section of land to hopefully take care of the problem, not know until it rains heavily and see if it actually settles. Then, like he was talking about, we have to jack the house up regardless because the house is already twisting. We got to jack it up on the specific points that it's lowest on and get it back to a point where it's level, and then try to stabilize it to where over the course of time it doesn't just go right back into that same problem, and then we spend another $5,000 backfilling some more land or rejacking this house. Then we have to get into the actual cosmetic and functional repairs of the home itself, which, just based off the estimate that I was giving when I was writing it down from what I saw in the house, minimum $22,000. So the all-in for this house, if somebody else would have come in and take over this, was going to be like 40-something bare minimum up to 55, and the house just simply isn't worth that. So unfortunately, this particular deal just really doesn't work, and sadly, the best situation these people could really do is to kind of level that land out themselves, and unfortunately just sack the house.
Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hop in on this. The big thing here is that we could have honestly made this deal work. Obviously, Derek just ran through the numbers about how we could have gotten the property, we could have owner financed it to ourselves, then owner financed it to somebody else and continue on from there. Problem is here is that with this kind of property and with this amount of damage, the numbers just don't make sense. What we genuinely believe in as a company and as individuals as well, we believe in something we call the win-win situation. So basically, it has to be a win for us, a win for the people we're getting it from, and a win for the person that's going to be buying it in the end. Here, the numbers don't make sense. The person is going to have to dump so much work and money into it. It wouldn't be a comfortable situation. Because in business, don't put yourself in a situation where you're doing scummy things and now you can't sleep with yourself at night. It's one thing if you land a good deal. It's one thing as well, even if the deal is way better than it should be and the person undervalued something and you talk with them and they're still happy with it and you're giving them what they want, that's still a win-win. The thing is that we're talking about something we'd be sitting on for a while because even the average person would clearly see this isn't a fair deal, this is going to work out, and the numbers just don't fit. Again, kind of like what Derek alluded to, I also agree. Best situation for that house, bulldoze it down, sell the land with water utilities and everything in it, move on from there. Use that money to relocate and continue on that way. That's just my opinion as well. Next house. We actually checked out a house in Manning. This was a actual owner finance deal being offered. So what they were asking for is $4,500 down as a down payment. They were asking for $780 a month, and they're asking for a total of $64,000 for the total price, no interest. So basically, every dollar you're paying is coming off the price of property. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it?
It does. Is it one of your properties?
It's not one of my properties. Is it one of your properties?
Either, no.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
So, we went and checked out this house. Here's the funny thing about this house. This house actually looks really nice. Overall, like, outside of some of the cosmetic issues that it had, you can see here, it's a pretty good looking house. They have it very well kept. Looks like just somebody happened to die in it or whatever else, like an older person that was being wheelchaired in, as you can see from our video here. There is one thing that's very, very important to point out, though. There's this stuff called Great Stuff. That is actually the name of it. What it is, that is a gap filler sealant. So, basically, this is how you cheaply fix settling, and it doesn't work at all. It is the most temporary solution I've ever seen, and I've almost seen houses where the boards will just fall through.
It is
because of how awful
like
it is.
the duct tape of sealant.
It is the duct tape of sealant. So here's what it looks like. If you guys aren't seeing it here, this is what it looks like. You ever see this in a home? Be very, very wary. That either means a couple of things. Option number one, there is major settling that is going on in the home. Option number two, there is some form of termite damage that has ate out the joists, and they have used this stuff to plaster it back up to the walls. But the problem is now you have a floor that's being supported by the wall that it's hanging onto for dear
So
life.
basically, your floor is floating.
Yes, your floor is floating. It doesn't have something underneath it. Or option 3 is that the joists have water damage and have already broken out, and so they can't support it, so they use this stuff. You ever see this in a home, start asking questions. Don't feel like you're being rude or anything else like that. Ask the right questions because you need to know. We've actually gotten burned by a house that had massive beneath the surface termite damage. You couldn't see anything on the outside whatsoever.
Oh, they covered it
but
very well.
The termite damage was so deep in the joists, in the walls, across full-on beams, and guess what was all over that house? The great stuff. Yeah, we got burned on that deal really, really bad. And ever since that deal, we always keep an eye out for it. Outside of that, house looks good. Looks like it's in good condition. The sad thing is with it, we're going to have to negotiate the guy down if we are going to get into it. Because if I purchase that house, these are the exact terms I would be offering to somebody else to own or finance it. You're an investor, you want to make a spread. We're going to have to see if we can negotiate them down, see if they're willing to work with us and take our deal, so then we can own or finance it out to somebody else, collect the cut in between, and go from there. So that's pretty much everything on the Manning house. Now we're moving on to the Belton mobile home. This was another interesting owner finance deal. So I'll give the background. You're more familiar with mobile homes than I am, even though I live in one. But basically, the deal is that they were asking for $19,000 total, so that'd be the total price that you would pay. They were asking for, I believe it was $1,900 down. That sounds about right. Yeah, it was like $1,900 down, and it was $350 a month. However, there was the caveat that this mobile home had to be moved, and you would be covering the moving expenses. Now, with that being said, please go more into that because you're more familiar.
Yeah, so buying a mobile home that you have to move isn't a big deal. The problem with it, however, is one, is it worth the move? So in this particular case, this mobile home was probably worth about what they were selling it for, about 20 grand or so.
Mm-hmm.
And a moving cost for a mobile home, this was a double wide, right?
No, it was a single.
Wide.
It was a single.
I do remember now it was a single because we tried to figure it out when we got there. So this was a single wide. So a single wide is a lot easier to move than a double wide because, as we were talking about earlier, a double wide is basically cut in half, and then they just ship both halves separately and then reattach it when they get to the place they go to. And a single wide, it just comes in one package. So in this particular case, all they really do is they just kind of hook it up because it has a hitch at the end of it, and they just drive it off. Now, the problem with moving a mobile home is that the older it is, the more insurance is required for it. As weird as that sounds, because there's a likelihood it's going to fall apart as you drive. So
this was a 1990s mobile home.
So it's already got age to it, and then the likelihood that something's going to break is pretty high. Just like we were talking about the settling earlier, just a little bit of shaking and moving when it's driving down the road can cause a break in the ceiling, cause some walls to fall apart, cause the floor joists to crack and break. And that's one of the big concerns with some of these older homes when you're moving them. Now,
and for those of you wondering, no, you can't skip the insurance. This is actually required by federal law to move a mobile home. You must get the insurance.
The actual moving company has got to be licensed to be able to move the object, and they can't just be driving in the middle of the highway with a large, basically, problem that can happen. Say like a tanker that tips over with oil, same logic. If this tips over and it causes a car wreck, who's paying for all the damages for all those people who just ran into it, or any damage that the house caused falling over people, and the house itself because we paid for it and we're wanting these people to move it, and if it falls apart, we just lost our investment. There's a lot of things that are really required. That's why insurance is a requirement for this. Now, with that being said, the actual moving cost for something like this, it also depends heavily on location, how far away they gotta drive. Would have been about $4 grand or so for where we would have had to move it to, which wouldn't have been too big of a deal, but once again, they were selling the mobile home for really what it was worth. Not really much of a margin there unless you're going to just fix it up full on and maximize your rentals and hope for like an Airbnb kind of cut or some individual room rentals.
So what we were looking at with it, So what we were looking at with it is that we were interested in potentially taking it, bringing it to a land that we actually own already, and doing kind of like what he was saying, mobile, either rent out the entire thing, room rentals, Airbnb, something along those lines. Problem is again, we need the moving costs taken out of it. Honestly, that's the biggest issue, I would say.
Well, it's that, and we'd have to, wherever we place it, in this particular case, we already have land, but we don't have the utilities hooked up, so we would have had to get the utilities hooked up, being the actual septic, because it's not on sewage here. Or sorry, septic, not on city sewer. We'd have to get the water ran, and we'd have to get the electric set up for the 220 for 2 different buildings, and that alone costs more money, so tack on another $3,000 or so, and you're talking $7,000 on top of the cost of the home, and we're gonna have to recoup $27,000 just to be able to break even on this mobile home, and that's gonna take a pretty long time on certain rentals in the area. If we would just strictly rent it and not actually.
And because we would place it on the land, this is where he was saying in our situation it doesn't make as much sense. With us placing on the land, there's another mobile home on that land,
Yes,
so it's not like we can owner finance the actual thing again. Because it's already less value. Listen, you can find mobile homes with land that can be selling upwards to $170,000+. No issue, no problem. All about location, comps, and everything else. Mobile homes without land are just the biggest depreciating asset you can possibly have. If you ever get into a mobile home, you buy a mobile home or do anything with it, get it on some land. You don't have to detitle it, but just have it to where it can be a package of some sort or whatever else. Otherwise, you're losing a lot of money, a lot of payments, and a lot of equity you put into your home, and you're wasting time and money. It's just the truth.
Yeah, because it's a car that takes more water damage, so it just falls apart faster.
So that's the deal with the mobile home. We're still trying to play around with the numbers on it. Not sure what to do or how to move forward on it. And so that pretty much wraps up what we saw in regards to homes, unless you have something to add.
Not at the moment. We just finally got back into looking at homes, and this is exactly what our business model is based on right now is real estate. We'll delve into some other stuff later on, but we were just so kind of behind the times here with all the other stuff that we were doing with really just your basic foundation work just to get the company up. It took us a month and a half, which we didn't expect. It took us a little longer than we expected. So we just finally got back into the game.
We looked at all these properties 2 days ago from the recording of this video. I mean,
that's how behind
we
are.
Yeah.
So next month, we're going to be significantly more houses are going to be looked at because that's actually what we're going to be doing. And now we're finally in that stage. We can do our actual day-to-day business.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that being said, sadly, this is just the situation in February.
This is just the tip of the iceberg, I promise. Now, I'm going to move on. We have somebody that we've been working with. His name is Todd. He's a broker. What these guys do is that they help businesses, investors, individuals connect, find money, find investment opportunities, get you investors or whatever else. He's a phenomenal guy. We've worked with him for a while. Here's the thing. Anything he ever brings to you, always evaluate if you feel comfortable with the risk and make that decision yourself. Never hold your broker accountable for your poor investing decisions. Because he may have brought you a bad deal, I promise you it was never intentional. That's what a broker does. They present all your options, you pick what you want to go with from there. We've been working with him for a while. You'll see his contact information here. If you're an investor, if you're somebody that's interested in getting into investing, this is the guy to talk to. He has a multitude of different resources and places to find something in regards to funding, money, or whatever else. In fact, actually, we paid him recently the advertising costs for him to start advertising for us to find us some investors. And now we're on to the investor segment that I promised earlier on. So, investors, as an early business.
That's a real pain in the ass, honestly.
It is, and it also kind of sucks because the thing is, you can't, as an early stage business with no credit, no net 30 accounts really long-term established, and no availability to bank loans, investors are your go-to. Now, the reason we say it kind of sucks is because sometimes you'll get really good investors. They understand the field. They understand what they're getting into. They get it. All they care about is just getting their money back. As long as you're honoring the agreement, not a problem. But then you'll get the other investors, the ones that want to invest. They jumped in too early. Now they're questioning and having issues or whatever else because investors are just people like anybody else. So you're dealing with a lot of different personality types, and as a startup, you don't have a lot of room to negotiate or argue with whoever your first couple of investors are. you need to make sure they're comfortable with it as best as you can, and you're honestly going to be playing a political game. That's the best way I can describe it.
And the reason why it's a real pain in the ass to add on to what he's talking about is because when you're a first-time startup, you don't have anything you can really sell to somebody to really explain how they're comfortable in the investment. You're basically having to hard sell them on the future and all of your projections and your personality. There really isn't anything else.
Experience and years of experience in the field definitely does help. Because it's one thing for somebody to feel comfortable investing in two seasoned real estate investors like we are. It's another thing if him and I just decide to switch over to, I don't know, like car sale, like running a used car lot or creating an anime or something like that. We have literally 0 years of experience in it. So now once you take that comfort away as well, you're talking a very hard pitch. You're in an uphill battle before you start.
The other problem that you have too, usually as a startup company, is you don't have anything to give as collateral. Most times whenever you're starting something up, you're just as broke as when you're trying to get anything else. You're doing like your first home, when you're buying something, or your first car. You don't really have anything. The collateral is the thing yourself you're going to get. So one type of loan that people typically get when they're looking to expand their business is they'll collateralize what they have and do a cash out refi. And well, in this particular case, we have no assets in this particular company, so we don't have anything we can leverage against it. So that means we're basically pigeonholed into one type of investment, which is somebody giving us money and then us leveraging whatever we buy with it. So if we buy a property, then they get collateral.
Yeah, but here's how you do this. So give you guys a little bit more detail on what he's talking about. As a real estate investor, you have one beautiful asset to you, and that's the fact that you have to close on a property in order to get it. So what basically happens is at the closing, your attorney sits down and he finishes all the paperwork. Your investor wires the money to your attorney, and then that's how the closing happens. So that's the money that the seller gets, and you sign off right then and there a mortgage and note against that property that you just purchased. This is a great way to leverage yourself and also keep the investor more comfortable and protected, because now their investment is actually secured by the property you said you were going to be investing into.
Yep. Because basically if you don't pay, they get the property that you were supposed to be paying them on.
That's exactly right.
It keeps them protected because now effectively they became the investor in the property and you just lost all the money or time that you put into it.
Yeah, and so this is one way you can do it when you're early up. Luckily, again, because him and I came from a field, we have a couple of resources available to us. Todd really being one of the biggest one in our own experience and what we can show with that. We're still a new company though. It still does not matter. We're just as fresh as anybody else.
All conventional means are basically off the table. We can't do anything with banks or any of that kind. We're still stuck to just your regular mom and pop, reaching out to them until they feel more comfortable with whatever years the company's been around.
And the thing is with investor advertising too, you're going to be putting yourself out there, and the worst thing you can do is not be confident. Look, if you're not confident in what you're doing and not being able to guarantee, not promise, not say that it might, or guarantee returns to your investors, you haven't fully finished your business plan. You haven't fully implemented. You haven't fully seen it to its conclusion. You have not seen it. I'm sorry. I genuinely believe you're going to lose that person's money, and you're going to feel guilty about doing so. You should be able to guarantee somebody something when it comes to an investment. If you can't, get back to the drawing board. We can. And that's why we're so comfortable with doing it. We could take on right now, I'd probably say we could take on right now, about $1 million and know exactly what we're doing with it and how to allocate every dollar.
Yeah, in the current situation we're in, we could do at least $1 million. Before we could have done more, but right now I'd rather just take it out since we're still stuck dealing with little nuances with the company startup.
And that's the thing, is like, you're going to want to advertise it, you're going to want to continue doing it, and you just got to push through it. It's part of the game, it's part of the phase. You could spend all your time making your own money and like building it up. You're wasting a lot of time when you could be investing and doing what you're actually good at.
And also building off other people's money, which is the whole reason why you get investors to begin with.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else to mention on investors?
Not right now, not until we get one. Once we get an investor, we'll showcase how their money is going to be utilized and actually what we're making off of that investment. And also, like we're talking about, how they were protected, how we're protected, and the whole kind of shebang.
Yeah. It makes a lot more sense for us to go into the full details of it after it's happened, because I'm pretty confident we are going to have an investor coming up this March. Because Todd seems like he may have actually brought somebody that looks very promising and very good to the table, but never count your chickens before they hatch. It's the dumbest thing you can do. So once we do get an investor, we'll show you guys what we do. Then obviously ask them their comfort level of how much they'd be willing for us to reveal. So we're going to protect their privacy, but we'll try to give you guys as much information as possible.
And understand as well, we don't actually require an investor to continue to build the business up. It's just, it significantly accelerates the growth of it. So with the money that we have, which we'll get into the budget here in just a minute, we'll still be able to build a foundation of this business and continue to grow it and scale it just normally without any investors. It's just the investors will help escalate it and just make it exponentially quicker.
It's the 2x principle, basically. You get one, you're 2xing what you have. You get another one, you can 2x what you have if your business model is sound and you know what you're doing. So, next segment. Vague content update. Ooh, so vague, so mysterious. Yeah. Well, we asked, you voted, and I'm proud to announce that in an undisclosed time, in an undisclosed location, at an undisclosed area,
soon,
Derek and I will actually start streaming on Twitch for you guys. So we'll pick a couple of different games. We'll be playing random games. So we'll be bouncing off each other's personalities. We're far more formal here because, again, this is actually our job and this is actually our company. So we're always going to be more formal on the YouTube.
So if you want to get in the down and dirty.
Oh yeah, you want to see the down and dirty.
The real rats on their belly as they're really in it. Go check out our more personal, less professional Twitch channel.
Yeah.
Once they're really up and running.
Again, we don't have a time, we don't have what it is, but you guys have clearly made it very evident in the Discord that this is something you're interested in, this is something that you'd be wanting to see, and quite frankly, I really don't have a problem doing with it. Understand, it's not going to be much, we're still figuring out how we're going to do this, because, sorry, business comes first, and this does come first.
Yeah, we got a bit of a couple scheduling conflicts, we're going to see how we can work it in there. We'll let you guys know in Discord, most likely in advance, prior to the March video, because we'll probably wind up getting a couple streams, hopefully, out in March. But
maybe
we literally can't guarantee. We have way.
I mean, if we get an investor alone, when you get investor funds, you do not delay.
That becomes absolute priority.
Yeah, that becomes priority number one. You don't have a dog, you don't have a family, your kids don't exist. You go.
We also have a couple other deals that we're working on at the moment that may take priority over anything else that we're looking to do. So once again, if those come through, we got to kind of put it on the back burner for the March. We're just putting it as a hopefully March.
Yeah, but we do want to announce it. It is something we have decided on. It is something we've agreed to, and we obviously want to give you guys what you're looking for, so you can have more, like, I guess, one-on-one time, even like Q&As if you want to do something like that with us on Twitch. Right now, we don't have any kind of real updates for you on it, just announcing that it is coming. So think of this as nothing more than like a trailer that you see for some BS like game. I don't know how else to word it. It's all whatever it is. maybe we'll make a trailer for it.
Oh god. That's more editing and
Michael
more time.
Bay action film trailer maybe for the worst quality content.
In your free time, have at it.
Alright, so this is the last update now before we get into the budget and we conclude the meeting. So, last update. Hope you guys enjoyed this recording studio because it's sold.
That's exactly right.
So, funny story about this nice little recording getup we have here. This is actually a camper that I own, and I put it up for sale recently and was able to get it sold. So, yeah, I'm actually right. Actually, both of us are technically trespassing. We just broke into my own into this guy's camper because they haven't moved it off my land.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's on my land, but they haven't moved it on. So technically, we just broke into this camper to record this video. So we're actually totally trespassing right now.
You sold this a week ago. And
yeah.
we didn't even have the key. Luckily, he left it unlocked.
Yeah.
So, I'm not kidding. We actually broke in. can't even re-record it because we're like, well, we kind of forgot to make a new recording studio. So hey, new recording studio coming next video. So last minute, we're like, crap, let's use the one we just had, and we're like, it's still here. Let's utilize it while we have it.
That's exactly right. Look, you don't need the fanciest things in the world to make things work. Because you can clearly see, yep, this worked.
Just run what you got. Cheap as an
new studio, 10 times better, 20 times the content, 5,000 more lights.
Yeah, no,
maybe
none of those promises will be fulfilled.
1 year. But yeah, we are going to be changing recording studio, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. But we're moving on to another one. It's going to be bigger, better, brighter.
That's right.
Definitely brighter.
Definitely
I know it'll
brighter,
definitely be brighter.
Is the lighting in this thing.
So it'll be bigger, better, and brighter, and then we'll be continuing on from there.
Yep.
Obviously, you guys will see it in the March update because I'm pretty confident the guy's going to come there. However, if he still doesn't take this, hey man,
and if you
it's free real estate.
If you see us in here for a third month, you know why. Because the guy just didn't take it, and we're taking full ride of it.
That's exactly right. Well, I think that covers all the updates that we had on that. Oh, you wanted to give a shout out to Zoho Mail as an announcement, didn't you?
Yeah, so one other little thing I want to mention to somebody is before when we were talking about the last video, appearances matter, and they're the thing that is really what sells the business because it just makes you look more professional, and that's kind of what people are looking for.
It shows how much time you actually spent in thinking, developing, creating, and presenting your business. It shows your dedication, really, to it more than anything else. Scammers aren't going to do all this.
So, yeah, you can technically make a free mail pretty much on any domain service of any kind. So, yeah, you have your Google, so you have your Gmail in this case. You have your AOL, so that's still a thing. You still have Yahoo and a couple other names out there, but one thing that really stands out is when you typically have like a company or a name at the name of the website. That really makes you look very professional, because when you actually handle that to somebody that's like, okay, this is a legitimately established business and they have a legitimate role in that business and this is their email for just them or this specific branch of the business.
And understand too, to get like what we have Derek Boyd at metrainc.com, Vladimir Stokalov at metrainc.com. The only way to get that at Metra Inc., you have to own the domain web page of that at. If you don't own it, you can't have it. That's why it adds an extra layer of validity, because that means you went out of your way, you created a name, you bought the domain, and now you have an email that you're paying for it as well. Appearance, I don't know, the sleazy 80s guy meme, it's all about the looks and how you show it.
Unfortunately,
it's 100% true. Anyone who tells you otherwise is wrong.
If you look the part, you'll get away with a lot more than if you don't look the part. Now, with that being said, typically with a lot of major businesses, they'll offer these type of services. So Wix will offer it, GoDaddy offers it,
Google offers it as well.
Google offers it, but they're paid, so they do take. I think we were paying $100 for two of them.
We were paying $100. I know exactly. We were paying $154 after tax every year for just two of them, being his and mine with our previous business.
So roughly $75 a person. So he got an email and I got an email, and we were running it through Wix for the previous company.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, what we found out, or specifically, I was just hoping to be a rat and looking around for the cheapest alternative. There's a company out there called Zoho Mail, which basically it's another kind of suite-like system where it has a bunch of different series of stuff besides just an email service. They're kind of like a Gmail or a Google services platform. They have a Drive, they have like their, whatever stuff I never use. It's just, I only use their email really. But they have a whole series of things that they offer as well called their Zoho Workplace. Now the reason why this matters is because they also offer free for 5 accounts at domain listings or whatever you want to call them, email addresses. So,
you're talking very limited, like email, like storage amounts on their
like
servers
5 gigs
and things
per
like
thing,
that,
which isn't really that much.
Emails fill up quick, trust me.
Because like the Gmail, I mean the Wix ones was 30 gigs an account, and then you have other ones. But the thing is, it's still free. So right out the gate, if you want to have that professional look, the one that we currently have being the Derek Boyd at Metra Inc. and the Vladimir Stokalov at Metra Inc. and we have a couple others like Contact and Business and whatnot.
Yeah.
Those are all 100% free to us. We just attached it through our Wix account, had this basically like port forwarding system all set up, but those specific email accounts are absolutely free. It didn't cost us a dime, and we continue to use them and continue to keep them, and it works like a regular email service, but we now have it established as my name at
Yep.
Metra and his name at Metra.
And again, all you have to do is, just like we talked about in the first video, get the domain name.
Yep.
You got the domain name? Great. You can make these emails and you can send them to any of those services, but you can only use one at a time.
And the thing is, realistically, if you don't...
It's actually a very neat looking system as well.
And the thing is, if you really don't like the new setup, if you don't want to transition, say you're really set on Gmail, you just used it for so long, just use the Zoho mail to set up the actual name that you need, and then just forward the emails to Gmail and never use the system if you really don't like it. This way you can still use Gmail, and then anytime you need to send an email, just log in and send it, and then that way it's always going in and out of that domain, so it always looks professional, but you can still utilize the stuff that you're used to if you really don't want to transition.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can still feel comfortable and also look and do things professionally. Zoho is actually a very incredible find, so I gotta give him credit, because I couldn't find anything that offered any kind of email servicing for free. At best, you might find like a 7-day trial. This one was completely free, so you're starting off with very little, you don't have much. Get a Zoho account, use their email service, the free version of it, and like, again, escalate your business. Don't sit there and keep making yourself look like you're just another generic potential scammer.
That's right.
Budget.
Yeah, so we didn't do anything this month. Honestly, the budget is the exact same. I never actually got around to finishing the budget for January because we were still literally trying to wait for that Grasshopper refund and a couple other little things like we got charged with T-Mobile and whatnot. So I just was like, I'll just put it in this video. So really, we only spent like maybe $300 worth of actual cash in this month, where we spent for gas, food, advertising budget for the ads that you put out.
Yeah, for the investor ads and everything else like that. Yeah.
And maybe some other miscellaneous stuff I can't think of, random parts and stuff for whatever things we need. But outside of that, no, we really didn't spend anything. Our current budget, now that we finally have it finalized, is about $16,500 and a couple dollars for this particular company. So once again, yes, Vlad has his own income, Derek has his own income. This is solely what Metra has in its bank account to use as funds that we can allot towards investments to eventually grow the company, outside of any investors or any individual contributions that we add, which we will, of course, because we obviously want this to grow as this is a combined unit. But as it's
you got to make sure that you're set up as well.
Yes.
Don't sit there and put yourself in a position where you're upside down leveraging your house to the point of sitting there and trying to become an investor or whatever else. Like, don't be comfortable about it either. I'm not saying sit back and do nothing, but don't over leverage yourself.
Yep.
That's why him and I both have our own separate incomes outside of the company, but we know what our company has to work with, and that's how we're going to start growing it from there, and also why we're so aggressively seeking investor funds and everything else, because we know what to do with it already.
So moving forward, now we know, now that it's all finalized and every money basically is in that Bank of America account and keep it easier trackable until we get a
New primary, baby.
Yeah, until we get a new bank account, start moving the money around as we need to. So basically that $16,500 is what we're going to be utilizing to put into purchasing real estate, and then we're going to be making our returns off that real estate, which goes back into that pot, which we'll be utilizing into other future investments on future real estate. So that's the actual amount of funds that we have at this moment without any additional investments. So moving forward, to finalize, when we do start getting into those properties, you'll see not only the amount of money that we're bringing in, so you'll see at the end of the next video, so March, how much money we have left in it after we've bought a property, any additional income we've got if we've got a down payment, so what's in the pot today, and then if we had any other investment funds, what their portion is, and if we contributed any. And you'll always know at the end of every video where we are that day. So in this particular case, February 27th, we are literally at $6,500 and a couple dollars. And it's that simple.
And what you do with that amount of funds, by the way, as far as future projections, again, don't bank on investors, don't bank on other people coming through. You can bank on yourself, you can't always bank on everybody else. What we're going to do in this situation, say we get nobody else to come in, no other additional income, we're solely going to be looking for flip owner finance properties. So basically properties that we can owner finance them to ourselves, and then we can flip it to somebody else, just collect the spread in between from there. Great way to increase your asset portfolio without necessarily taking money completely out of your account for it.
That's right.
So that's the future projections right now. Looking for owner finance deals, continue on from there. If we get an investor involved, there's going to be an entire slew of things that are going to be happening, because now we'll actually be hardcore acquiring properties, and that's a completely different game than looking for these smaller deals, which aren't bad, but they're here for a reason.
The big thing is the more options you have available to you, the more deals that you can make, and significantly more money you can make, because now you're not being pigeonholed into one particular style, and that you can literally start interweaving different deals in between multiple deals, and sometimes you can get one investor who's looking for that weird mishmash of portfolios that you're making, and sometimes you can get some crazy investments that you otherwise wouldn't have because you only had one style beforehand.
That's exactly right. All right, well, I guess now, in typical meeting, do you have any announcements you want to make?
No, I do not. Do you?
Nope, I'm good. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in into Metra's February report. We look forward to seeing you guys in March, and this concludes the video. See ya.
Thanks. See you guys.